Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. And yeah, we danced quite a bit on the pregame today. We always get quite a bit out of those. I always get quite a bit out of those, and but we tossed around a couple of ideas, but we ended up with this notion of the concept and the word of impermanence that everything essentially comes to an end. And I think the first thing I'd want to do is read the definition just to kind of frame it and then pass it back to you, Jim, for maybe putting our framework in context. And then we've got a set of five subtopics within that world of impermanence. But the word impermanence means the state or fact of lasting for only a limited period of time or not lasting forever. It is the opposite of permanence. Essentially, it's the phenomenon in life that everything comes to an end and nothing stays the same or lasts forever. So, yeah, it's a cool word. And I think, Jim, in my estimation, that's a nice thing to be reminded of. And you did that for me in the pregame. So I appreciate that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, Mark, this is winding down the end of the year, which is the end of a season. Every year is a season.
Mhm.
I think we talked about this before. The seasons typically run in 90-day increments. That's a football season, a baseball season, a basketball season. Obviously, in
Hmm.
modern times, it's been extended for a lot of different reasons. But I do think that there's something to these 30 days, the first 30 days, the first 60 days, and the first 90 days. And it applies to relationships. It applies to sports seasons, but everything in life is a season. Um, so I was at a annual planning meeting yesterday, and my presentation about this role that I have with the National Kitchen and Bath Association about what are the goals for 2026. And obviously we've all been in these different planning meetings, so I decided to frame it as the past, present, and future with the difference in framing it as is these are our greatest challenges. These challenges also are our greatest opportunities because it's all about how you want to frame it, right? You could look at it
Hmm.
as challenges, 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 or you can think of it as these because every time there's a change, which is a challenge, there's an opportunity. And this is relevant because of our pregame talk about you mentioned AI and how it's changing.
Hmm.
The 2025 will go down, in my opinion, as one of the when the world really changed. And what I mean by that is that there was the technology that happened in the 90s, but this is a whole other level of human interactions and behaviors. And you made some comments about how the old guard, whether it's human resources in corporate America, even 9 to 5, everything, all that is going to get reconfigured. I happen to believe for good. Like I'm optimistic. Remember, I'm an AI optimist, meaning that I believe AI is not artificial intelligence, it's amplified intelligence. And there's so much good that's going to come from this. But boy, 2026 is going to be a reckoning of old systems that are breaking down. The first one is going to be, I think that it's going to have the greatest impact on is going to be education. I think the K through 12 system and even the university system, how people gather and learn information is going to be probably the biggest one. And the hierarchies that have been put in place over the last 100 years, or in our case, 50, 60 years, are going to come crumbling down in ways like we just don't even know.
Yeah, I take a slightly different take on that, and I think my is not necessarily not optimistic, because I generally consider myself a pretty optimistic guy overall, and I have seen technological innovation from the front lines for 35 years, based on being a technical recruiter and then an owner of a technical recruiting company. So we're talking to software engineers my whole life who are on the cutting edge of stuff. But there's so many unknowns. I think there are people out there that are claiming that we know this and we know that, which is always the case, I suppose. Gurus and experts, and those words get thrown around when new things happen. But I think that the two things that strike me as uncertainties are both the energy supply, the availability of energy, and the regulatory side of things. So those are so big. Um, they could sway this trend one way or the other, but it's amazing to me how many people are diving in. And I said to you in the pregame, I thought you and I were ahead of the curve, and I believe that to be true because I think most people are dabbling and some people are diving in. And I'm no technical expert by any means, but I'm not dabbling. I use it pretty aggressively every day and have been now for a few months. But I know some guys that have been using it for years. I saw a guy on a master class yesterday who said I started working in AI 15 years ago. And I'm like, wow. And I remember, dude, I was recruiting in Boston in the late 80s, and I remember Ray Kurzweil coming out with the language stuff where you could take they started putting what's the word for that technology, the voice recognition technology, which was
Mhm.
apparent kind of AI. So it's been around for a while, but I think the commercial application of it is probably 3 or 4 years old. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's interesting. And and we were talking a lot about the hiring process as well, which we can get into. That's one of our categories, the careers and jobs. But let's grab this first one, unless you have anything else you want to add before we start on these five.
No, just that again, it's not a different of opinion, but having access to information at our fingertips that in the past, you'd have to have access to somebody with a PhD that has much knowledge. That's all now available to somebody with a couple of keystrokes. That
It's
is a game
amazing.
changer. That
Yeah,
this is way beyond just even the energy supply that power that engine. It's just going to change the world like we have never seen before.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think I feel again, I'm more of an optimist in this. I think it's a leveling the playing field, and these people in positions of power or let's just say not people. That's unfair. These positions of power are going to shift because the gatekeepers really are not going to be there. But anyway, let's move on to the word because I think the word um, the word uh, capsulizes that nothing is forever. Everything is constantly changing, and to embrace that in a say a positive way, because you could be negative too, where you're in fear, it's going to end, and you're always protecting yourself. I found this word, more optimistic in terms of how you want to frame it. So yeah, let's go
yeah.
through number one and let's go through all five and break them down.
Yeah, I think how we frame things is the way we live our lives, you know. To your point, I think that you have, is this a challenge or a hardship, or is it an opportunity to learn something? Well, it's both
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
Yeah,
To
always
your
is.
point.
Yeah.
So the first one we have here is one of your favorites, the
Mm-hmm.
changing of seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think I agree with you. I think a lot of things on this in this world have seasons, and the literal thing would be the four seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Mm-hmm.
But within those, I think we have seasons of life. You have seasons of, to your point, relationships. So there isn't a particular area of this word seasons that I am limited to, but you bring this up a lot, Jim, when we talk, and I agree with you. It's a very interesting way of framing things, and take it to a real micro level. If thinking about, I was thinking about it in the pregame. I didn't say it to you, but I'm like, what about just like if you're going on a run and you don't feel like it, and you're not, and you get tired. Well, your mind can go, this will be over in a few minutes. Just keep going. Or your mind can go, I'm shutting down,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
tiny
See,
example.
I take this particular one a little different. Number one is it says the changing of the season. I think I mentioned my high school football team season just ended last Saturday night, so 6 days ago. And I did a talk. They were devastated. They'd made it to the third round, so it was a very successful season. They won the league, uh, and then they were beat pretty good. Uh, Not on the scoreboard, but they got outcoached. They got outplayed. And anyway, but the coaches said the words, and then they asked me if I wanted to see. And my words were, "Hey, everything in life is a season, right? This is not about the game of football. These are high school players, high school kids. So, 15, 16, 17, and 18. varsity. And I said that, the whole reason that I started the alumni group was to prepare you for life. And the greatest gift somebody can give you is the ability to compete. But you can take this loss because they were very emotional, crying and all the things and I says, and there's two ways that you can do this. One, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better, right?
Hmm.
The other one is don't let this define you, let it refine you. So it's again, now what happens to you in life, it's how you respond to what happens to you. In this game of football this season, you were given this opportunity to prove your value compared to your competitor. Today they were the better team. And but it doesn't end. This is just one example of how you can now take this information and then go on to your next season, whatever that is. Not maybe not football. It's just a season of life because everything is a season. And that's how I see as the number one on this example of the changing of the seasons. There's seasons are constantly changing. Nothing is forever. That's why I like this word so much. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
let's.
it's a great word. The next of the five is the aging of the human body.
Oh
And
man.
that couldn't be more relevant, right, than it is right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what's the interesting thing about this for me is I was talking, my situation with my dad's 97 and
Yeah.
he wants to talk with all the time about what's going to happen after he's gone. And we hope that doesn't happen anytime soon, but it's not going to be a long time. That season's going to come to an end pretty soon.
Yes, it
And that
is.
then it makes me reflect on my own mortality. And we were talking about that too. And I think
Mhm.
with regard to my own mortality, it's been a little bit of a challenge. I told you my 60th birthday 4 years ago, I had a bit of a panic attack, and I that was the first time I ever really was consciously aware of my mortality, which is kind of,
Mhm.
in hindsight, a little bit silly, I suppose. On a real conscious level, it like smacked me in the face,
Yeah.
and then you start to
Yeah.
notice what I try to do is I try to appreciate, I can still move around. I can still go for walks. I can still, exert myself in the yard. I can still do a lot of things. And to your point about how you frame stuff, it's like just because I'm in if there's three chapters, I'm in chapter three, right? Season three.
Mhm.
Maybe you could argue there are more than that, but for all intents
See,
and
I
purposes,
I take that number two a little different. The aging of the human body. It's the human mind as much as the human body.
it is.
So it's not. Yeah. Again, it's part of our framework, right? That's one of our pillars in terms of our relationship with ourself, which is our mental health and our physical health, our well-being. So there's the physical part, which kind of, it is what it is. It's an aging body. Our bodies are always aging. But the mind, and I think we shared that when you face mortality, it's watching somebody go in decline, particularly men, because if, like you said, whether it's your father, sounds like his mental condition's pretty good, very good for his age, but it's going to happen to us. It's going to happen to every
Yeah.
one of us.
Well,
And
it was years ago that one of my best friends, his dad started to go south dementia wise, and I lived it with him from the sidelines. Obviously, I wasn't on the field, but he's a good friend, and so he would share stories with me, and it was really difficult. And then my brother, his wife's mom, who passed recently, she had a couple of years of just, I mean, crazy. The stories are just nuts, man. And it's just like, how can you be even, it's not my mother, it's not my father, but it's pretty close, and it's just like, it's just,
yeah,
how do you get through that? How do you prepare for that? I don't know that you can, but certainly creates an awareness that, I can see that not being far away. Maybe I'll be spared from it. Maybe I won't, but
no,
yeah,
nobody's spared from it, Mark. Nobody's spared
yeah,
from
I
the
guess
human
not.
body. The aging of the human body
No,
is
I was specifically talking about dementia, but I think that eventually things start to shut down and slow down. Yeah, I mean,
of
nobody is
course,
spared
yeah,
from it. But it's also,
yeah,
I've also had the ability to watch my father handle the whole thing just with grace. Whether it was when he can drive his car or he can't walk outside in particular weather anymore, he doesn't take the stairs, he takes the elevator. I mean, he just advancing, just accepting these things I think mostly because of his faith in that there might not be an
Yeah.
end to this for him. That's an
Yeah.
interesting spin on the
Yeah.
afterlife. But no, we're
Well,
not.
and
None
it's
of us
in
are immune.
our different perspectives. I saw my father go in a major decline mentally and physically at the final years of his life. So, uh, yeah, it's just different, right? Different experience. But his
Yeah,
season came to an end physically and mentally, but before he passed in 2019. So it's
yeah.
interesting. But yeah,
I
let's move
think
on to the next one. So number three, but go ahead.
the rise and fall of emotions or feelings. Yeah,
Mm,
I mean, we were talking a lot about that in the pregame as well, and I'm fully transparent. I've got some broken relationships in my family, and the love is still there, but the there's also some anger, and there's also some frustration and a little bit of guilt in terms of my
mm,
emotional seasons regarding that. But
mhm,
and I've got a couple of relationships in place that I come in and out of them. You were talking about making a call or being grateful in some actions and words and making it a practice. And I think that's a wonderful idea. But yeah, some of us can't
Yeah,
handle our
I think
emotions. Some can.
yeah, yeah. I think managing our emotions is directly related to our mental health because it's managing expectations for others and yourself, and those feelings become your life because we are our thoughts, and the more that we think of something, the more it affects us physically and mentally. So yeah, I
Well,
think the next one it sets it up better to have the conversation, but the rise and fall of emotions, uh, yeah, you can go really high or really low, but
and we all see, I see people in my life directly and indirectly that are like they're hanging on to an emotion that's just hurting them. They're just it's a waste of
mhm,
time because
yep.
nothing can last forever. Then an emotion should subside after a period of time.
Mhm.
And the management of emotions. I mean, not to be political, but it's like the people that are out there that can handle a conversation with someone with whom they disagree without becoming emotional. Um, it's a substantial percentage of the population that can't do that, apparently. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah, I think the one where reminds me of emotion is expectation. We talked about this earlier. The older you get, the more you realize you don't know. But I think trying to remove or lower expectations, what is a direct um, example of managing your emotions. Because when you have an expectation that's high or it hasn't been met, that'll affect your emotional well-being. So
certainly
anyway,
your response to whatever happens
yeah,
if it's different than you were anticipating. But I
yeah.
think anticipation is probably not a great idea most of the time, because I
Yeah.
usually find
Or
out.
expectation. I
Yeah,
think it's okay to anticipate them, but to expect it is very different. I've learned
yeah,
to kind of
yeah,
lower my expectations to zero and then be excited when they get succeeded
yeah. No, it's a great thing to be
for
able to
myself
do.
and others,
I
right?
just can't do it all the time. And I think
Yeah.
about the times in my life where I've lost my temper, where I've allowed my anger to
Yeah.
impact my response. I
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
regret
it's
it.
funny.
I always regret that. I don't do it very often, which is great. So maybe I should applaud myself a little bit. But when I do it, it
Well,
doesn't
like I say,
serve
even
anything.
just driving, I was in San Francisco last night driving, and everybody's driving like crazy. But in the past, you'd be get mad and you'd,
Yeah.
honk. And now my expectations are so low that nobody can surprise me when they,
Dude,
you know.
when I was in my early 30s, I drove a Honda and when when I sold that car to my buddy who bought it for his daughter because they run forever, the top of the steering wheel was bent, right?
because you
Yes.
because of how
Yes.
angry you were at the
Yes.
expectations of other drivers.
I was a road rage guy and now I
Yeah,
laugh
yeah,
to your point.
yeah, that's great. Let's go to number four. Yeah,
Number
yeah,
4 is the beginning and end of relationships or
mm,
jobs. Yeah,
mm.
that
Wow. Yeah,
the job thing is interesting. They're both interesting, the
mhm,
relationships come to an end. I think about the relationships that I have and if we just talked about friendships for a moment, it would be like I get farther away and there are longer periods of time that elapse between me and my maybe circle of 4 or 5 great friends. They're still great
Mhm.
friends, but life takes us in different directions and gives us different priorities. And then I think the first thing that happens, at least with my relationships, is somebody gets married, right? Changes the
Mhm.
landscape, right? And
Mhm.
then you have kids, and that changes the landscape again. But I think my relationships with those select few people probably will end upon my demise or their demise. At least I hope so,
Yeah,
but they're
like you said,
different.
the word relationship, it applies to a lot of different relationships, family relationships, all the different things. But have you ever heard the 333 uh, romance rule? The
No.
romance in a romantic relationship. I don't know how I came across this the other day. It's really interesting. I knew that this talked about a season, right? It's three dates, 3 weeks, 3 months. So I'm using just as a romantic relationship, but I think it applies to all new relationships. Could even be business, it could be a new friend or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I think all
Yeah,
relationships are romantic at the beginning, you
Yeah,
know.
they are because and it just breaks it down. The initial phase is experiencing different scenarios, sort of the novelty of it being new. There's a level of excitement, even
Yeah.
dopamine that's being released because of this unknown, right? And then
No,
yeah,
I
so it's
yeah, I'm not far away from that first phase.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
but
I'll break down these three real quick, and then we'll move
yeah.
on. But so yeah, that's what they call that the three dating. It's behavior, communication style, the chemistry, or connecting, right? Very exciting, the newness of that novelty, and then three weeks. By this point, you're beyond the honeymoon phase, and now it's is there a connection there, right? Is there a deeper connection that will go beyond that? There usually could be an event and you're just like, this is over. But then there's the 3 months milestone where it's the checkpoint to determine the relationship's long term. Is this somebody going to be part of my life
Hmm.
beyond the 3 months? So
Hmm.
interesting, right? 3 months, 90 days, it's a season.
Well,
So, so
they do the same thing with jobs, right? It's your 30-day review,
interesting.
your 60
I
day
didn't think of
review,
that.
your
Yeah.
90-day review. And not everybody does that, but it's a very common theme,
Yeah.
and at 90 days, most leadership coaches and executive coaches that are talking to people about hiring and developing talent will tell you should know by 90 days, and maybe you should know by 30 days, because the investment in the input investment beyond that, you're kind of committed,
I didn't
so
know that. It's interesting. Yeah. So
yeah,
this
it is
applies
interesting.
to many things in life.
It
Uh,
does. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it's that whole seasons thing. It's the changing of the seasons thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting. So the
So
the
number five. Yeah.
the last one is the way new technology quickly makes old technology obsolete.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
very
guess
relevant to the AI conversation, right?
it's directly relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great kind of way to kind of wrap this one up about the impact that this technology is going to have on every facet of our life, and whether we're going to be part of that change or we'll be victims of that change. Because you could already see, especially in the tech world, that the let's just say the older and not even old, they could be in their 30s and be old now because the way that you build technology now, because I'm doing a huge AI technology for the patent I just filed at the end of 2025. It's all AI, but the advantage, I think I've shared this with you before, the fact that I'm not a coder, I'm not a technical guy, for the first time, really in this evolutionary technology buildup of where we're at right now, it's not the technical guys. It's not the guy that can code. It's guys that have domain expertise that they can apply to the AI agent, because the AI agent is the task that does the work. So it's training the model in order to do a specific task or solve a specific problem. So it's a major shift going from the technical wherewithal to build this whole new infrastructure of
You,
of
you know,
uh,
what's
technology to domain, and that's understanding the problem very, very well. So it's a really interesting shift, right? That means that now all of
I
a
would
sudden
say
we have
yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
I would say again, from my perspective, so I started recruiting software engineers in the late 80s. So I've
Yeah.
been through quite a few technological innovations, maybe
Yeah.
arguably 20 of them, but
Hmm.
certainly at
Hmm.
least 10. But it was always the case in my experience that there were people that were technically proficient at things. Then there were people that were not only technically proficient at things, but they could visualize and architect solutions. They could see the bigger
Hmm.
landscape. And
Hmm.
those were the people that were in the most demand. And those will always be the people that will be in the
Of
most
course,
demand,
that's
I think.
innovation, right?
Yeah.
The innovate. Even though they're technical, it's being very innovative and using these new technologies to build things that we couldn't even think of ever possible a
Well,
year
it's like
ago.
a Elon Musk kind of brain, the kind of person that can see to Mars or I think those people I was on another call recently with a guy that probably isn't older than 40, he's probably still in his 30s, and he was like, I'm already aging out of this stuff. He goes, I'm talking to these 18, 19-year-old kids right now. They're technical, they can code, they're strategic, they have domain expertise. They're just blowing into this stuff. So it is going to be fascinating, Jim, how this thing plays out, and I appreciate your optimism about it. My commitment to it is I'm going to play around with it with an intensity and a focus, at least a half hour or an hour a day. And I've experienced some pretty interesting progress, and I've experienced some pretty. I mean, when I first got into it, it was overwhelming. It was just overwhelming, and it has a tendency to be that way. But yeah, I think people that can think critically and solve difficult problems aren't going to go away. But I think people that don't pay attention to AI are going to get kicked to the curb, whatever that might mean to them. But I think this conclusion on this impermanence thing, the way I feel about it after talking with you a little bit and thinking through it in some detail is if in fact everything is going to come to an end, then shouldn't we appreciate where we are and what we have a little bit more in the moment? You know?
Well, yeah, that's kind of we'll wrap up with that. That's what I was saying. It's how you want to frame it, right? It's past, present, or future. You could reflect on the past, learn from it, the challenges, but and you can try to predict the future, but it really I value living in the present, and that's what I think we've captured today. Nothing is forever,
No,
and
I try every day to get better at what you just said, which is
yeah,
staying in the moment and but not paying attention to other things, but not wallowing in the past
yeah,
or thinking that I have any
yeah,
idea what's going to happen in the future,
yeah.
except
It's
having
it's not
interesting
easy. Yeah,
discussions
yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
it's
interesting how
not.
our framework, of these 5 areas of our life, with the center being there are many selves, but the first one being self-aware. Just being self-aware of it alone is the greatest challenge, and then constantly evaluating these 5 areas of our life. And I'll mention them just quickly before we wrap up. But again, our career, our profession, even though maybe we're at a stage where we don't need to work like we did, or it still is it is our self-worth as a man. Our contribution is still important, that we're productive, we're producing something that the world could benefit from.
Hmm.
It's just and then from there it's our relationship with our health, right? Our well-being, our mental health, and our physical health. Our second, our third pillar would be our relationship with the world, our worldview, our which is based on our childhood, our religion, our politics, and then the relationship with others, and particularly difference between a relationship with a woman versus a man, our mother, our father, our wife, our girlfriend, and then the relationship with money, because that one just doesn't ever go away. It's a
No.
scoreboard of our life,
Yeah,
and
it is. Yeah, I
so
think
that's
the
the Imperfect Men's Club framework. And our tagline, maybe we'll save this for another episode: the imperfection is the perfection.
yeah.
And I believe that the more that you realize this really just mess, this clusterfuck of everything is really the perfection. It's not. There's nothing wrong. Maybe it's all right. It's all about how you want to frame it.
Well, it's all here. It's not going anywhere. So
Exactly.
we can
I'd rather
face
be
it and
happy and naive
yeah,
than
yeah. Well,
knowledgeable and mad, right?
yeah.
And dumb. And so, yeah.
No,
So anyway,
I just wanted to tell everybody that might be listening to please, head over to the Apple platform and give us a review. I've asked a few people in the past couple of days, and everybody's happy to do it. But we need to continue to ask because it can be very effective and very helpful. I would like to think, Jim, that this message that we're sending out to the world might help somebody, and
yeah.
it might be something to share with somebody else to help them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Mark. Until next time.
Thanks, Jim.